Your life changes the moment you make a new, congruent, and committed decision. I want to talk to you today about one of the most powerful skills you can develop, a skill that will transform your life in ways you can't imagine. It's not about working harder. It's not about knowing more. It's about choosing better. Every day, you and I make hundreds of choices: what to eat, what to wear, what to say, who to talk to, what to work on. These choices might seem small, but they shape the story of our lives. And there's one choice that separates the successful from the rest: learning to say no to the good so you can say yes to the best. Success leaves clues, you know. I've spent decades studying successful people, and I noticed something interesting. They're not people who say yes to everything. They're people who are very careful about what they say yes to. They understand a fundamental truth. Every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. That's the reality most people miss. Your time, your energy, your attention, these are limited resources. When you give them to one thing, you can't give them to another. So the question becomes, are you giving your limited resources to the good things or the best things? Most people fill their lives with good things, good opportunities, good relationships, good jobs. Good is comfortable, good is safe, good is acceptable, but good is the enemy of great. Good is the obstacle that keeps you from your potential. I remember talking with a young man years ago. He was telling me about all the projects he was working on, all the clubs he joined, all the committees he was part of. Jim, he said, I'm just so busy. I don't know how I'm going to get it all done. I asked him, how many of these things are moving you towards your major goals? He looked at me puzzled. Well, I don't know. Maybe one or two. That's the problem right there. Here's what I've learned. Being busy is not the same as being productive. Activity is not accomplishment. Movement is not achievement. You can spend your whole life being busy with good things and never touch what's best for you. Look, I'm not saying good things are bad. They're good. That's the tricky part. They have value. They offer some benefit. They can enrich your life in some way. That's what makes them so dangerous, because they're just good enough to take up your time, but not good enough to take you where you want to go. Let me tell you what happens when you say yes to too many good things. First, you spread yourself too thin. You know the saying? Jack of all trades, master of none. That's what happens. You give a little bit of yourself to a lot of different things, and you never achieve excellence in anything. Second, you exhaust yourself. You run from one commitment to another, trying to keep all those plates spinning. You're tired, you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, and you wonder why you're not making progress on your big dreams. Third, you compromise what matters most. This is the tragic part. The things that are truly important to you, your health, your key relationships, your major goals, they get whatever energy is left over after all those good commitments. And usually that's not much. Fourth, you lose your ability to focus. Your mind is scattered, jumping from one obligation to another. But great achievement requires focused attention. As Earl Nightingale said, success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal. Notice he said a worthy goal, not 50 worthy goals. Fifth, you start to lose your passion. When everything is a priority, nothing is a priority, you don't feel that fire of commitment anymore. You're just going through the motions, checking boxes, moving from one task to the next without joy or purpose. I've seen this tragedy play out countless times. People who had so much potential, who could have done something remarkable with their lives, but they said yes to so many good things that they never had the time, energy, or focus to pursue what was best. Let me ask you something. What's the best use of your time right now? Not just a good use, the best use. What would move you furthest toward your goals? What would have the greatest positive impact on your life? What would bring you the most fulfillment? Most people can't answer those questions. They've never thought about it. They're too busy responding to whatever comes their way. They've turned their lives over to chance, to circumstance, to whatever happens to show up. But that's not how successful people live. They don't leave their lives to chance. They're intentional. They're selective. They know what matters most to them, and they organize their lives around those priorities. So how do you figure out what's best for you? It starts with knowing your values. What do you truly care about? What principles do you want to live by? What kind of person do you want to be? A lot of people skip this step. They chase goals without first clarifying their values. But your values are your foundation, they're your compass. They help you determine whether a path is right for you, regardless of how attractive it might seem on the surface. After values come priorities. What are the most important roles in your life? Are you a parent, a spouse, a business owner, a leader in your community? What responsibilities come with those roles? What goals do you have within each area? Then comes vision. What do you want your life to look like in 5 years? 10 years? 20 years? Everything went perfectly in your career, your relationships, your health, your finances. What would that look like? Get specific. Paint that picture in vivid detail. Once you have clarity on your values, priorities, and vision, you have a framework for decision making. You have criteria for determining what's merely good and what's truly best. And that's when saying no becomes easier. Because saying no isn't really about saying no. It's about saying yes to something better. It's about protecting your time and energy for what matters most to you. I know someone who was offered a promotion at work. More money, more prestige, more responsibility. Sounds good, right? But it also meant more travel, longer hours, less time with family. After careful consideration, he turned it down. Some people thought he was crazy, but he understood that saying yes to that promotion meant saying no to things that were more important to him: his health, his marriage, his time with his children. That's wisdom. That's maturity. That's understanding that not all opportunities are created equal. Some opportunities move you toward your best life. Others move you away from it, even if they come with short-term benefits. Now, saying no isn't always easy. We worry about disappointing people. We fear missing out. We wonder if we're making the right choice. But here's what I've learned. Saying no gets easier with practice, and the benefits become more apparent over time. So how do you say no gracefully? First, be prompt. Don't string people along because you're afraid to say no. That's disrespectful of their time and creates more guilt for you. Second, be honest but not brutally honest. You don't need to criticize the request. Simply explain that it doesn't align with your current priorities or that you don't have the bandwidth right now. Third, suggest alternatives when appropriate. Maybe you can't serve on that committee, but you know someone who would be perfect for it. Maybe you can't attend that event, but you could contribute in another way. Fourth, be firm. Don't leave the door open if you really mean no. Don't say maybe later if the answer is actually no. Not ever. That just postpones the disappointment and keeps you feeling guilty. And fifth, don't apologize excessively. One simple, "I'm sorry, I can't help with this," is enough. You don't need to justify your decision to protect your time and energy for what matters most to you. Let me tell you about my friend Mark. When I first met him, he was involved in a dozen different ventures. He was working 80 hours a week, his health was suffering, and his family barely saw him. He was stressed, exhausted, and frustrated because despite all his activity, he wasn't making significant progress in any area. One day, Mark sat down and made a list of everything he was involved in. Then he asked himself, if I could only do 3 of these things, which would they be? It was a clarifying question. He realized that most of his time and energy were going to activities that weren't aligned with his core values or his biggest goals. So Mark started saying no. He resigned from committees. He dropped projects that weren't bearing fruit. He delegated tasks that others could do. He set boundaries around his time. It wasn't easy. People were disappointed. Some were even angry. But Mark stuck to his decision. Within 6 months, everything changed. By focusing on just a few key areas, Mark made more progress than he had in the previous 3 years. His primary business grew by 40. He lost 25 pounds. His relationship with his wife and children improved dramatically. And the most surprising part, he was working fewer hours than before. That's the power of saying no to the good so you can say yes to the best. It's not about doing more. It's about doing more of what matters. I also know a woman named Sarah who was a natural helper. Whenever anyone asked for her assistance, she said yes. She volunteered at her children's school. She took on extra projects at work. She was always the one her friends called when they needed support. Sarah prided herself on being reliable and generous. But over time, Sarah realized she was neglecting her own needs and goals. She had dreams of starting her own business, but she never had time to work on it. She wanted to improve her health, but she was too exhausted from helping everyone else. She desired deeper connections with her family, but she was spread too thin. Sarah decided to make a change. She created what she called a not-to-do list, things she would no longer spend time on. She stopped volunteering for every school event and chose just one role that aligned with her skills. She became more selective about the projects she took on at work, focusing on those that would develop her leadership abilities. She learned to ask, is this request aligned with my priorities? Before saying yes. It wasn't an overnight transformation. There were setbacks. There were times she fell back into old patterns. But gradually, Sarah reclaimed her time and redirected it toward what mattered most to her. Today, she runs a successful business that she built in the margins of time she created by saying no to what wasn't essential. These stories illustrate an important truth. Your ability to say no to the merely good will determine your capacity to achieve what's best. It's a daily discipline, a muscle that gets stronger with use. And that's what I want to talk about now. The daily disciplines that will help you make better choices consistently. Because one good decision won't transform your life, but 1,000 good decisions made day after day absolutely will. First, start each day with clarity about your priorities. Before you check your email, before you look at your phone, remind yourself of what matters most. Some people find it helpful to write down their top 3 priorities for the day. Not 20 priorities, just 3. What are the 3 things that, if accomplished, would make this day successful? Second, create buffers in your schedule. Don't pack your day so full that you have no margin for reflection or rest. When your schedule is too tight, you'll make decisions based on expediency rather than importance. You'll say yes to things simply because you're in a hurry. And it's easier than thinking it through. Third, practice the pause. When someone asks you to commit to something, don't answer immediately. Say, let me check my schedule and get back to you. This gives you time to consider the request in light of your priorities and current commitments. Fourth, conduct regular reviews of your commitments. Once a month, look at everything you're saying yes to. Projects, relationships, activities, obligations. Ask yourself, is this still serving my highest goals? Is this moving me toward my vision? Is this aligned with my values? Be willing to prune what no longer fits. Fifth, surround yourself with people who respect your boundaries. Some people will resist when you start saying no. They're used to you always being available, always saying yes. But over time, the right people will adjust, and they'll respect you more for having clear priorities. Sixth, remember that seasons change. What's best for you in this season of your life might not be what's best in the next season. Be willing to reevaluate as your circumstances, goals, and priorities evolve. And seventh, forgive yourself when you get it wrong. Sometimes you'll say yes when you should have said no. Sometimes you'll say no when you should have said yes. That's part of the learning process. Don't waste energy on regret. Just make a better choice next time. These daily disciplines will help you build a life of intention rather than reaction. That's really what we're talking about here. Being intentional about how you spend your most precious resources. Your time, your energy, your attention. Most people live reactive lives. They respond to whatever demands are loudest. They follow the path of least resistance. They do what others expect of them. And then they wonder why they don't feel fulfilled, why they're not making progress toward their dreams. But you can choose a different path. You can decide to live proactively, to shape your life according to your values and vision, rather than letting circumstances shape you. It's like the difference between driving with a destination in mind versus just getting in your car and following whatever road happens to be in front of you. One approach leads to a specific destination. The other leads to wherever the road happens to go. I think about my own journey. When I was young, I said yes to almost everything. I was eager to please, eager to succeed, eager to take advantage of every opportunity. But over time, I learned the power of selectivity. I learned that doing fewer things better leads to greater impact than doing many things adequately. I remember turning down a lucrative speaking engagement because it conflicted with my grandson's birthday. Some people thought I was making a mistake. You can see your grandson anytime, they said. This is a big opportunity. But I knew what mattered most to me in that moment. I knew what best looked like for me. And here's what's interesting. The more I've practiced saying no to things that aren't aligned with my highest values and goals, the more opportunities have come my way that are aligned. It's as if the universe responds to clarity. When you're clear about what you want, what you value, what you're working toward, you attract more of what serves that vision. But it takes courage. It takes courage to say no to good opportunities that don't serve your highest purpose. It takes courage to disappoint people in the short term for the sake of your long-term goals. It takes courage to choose a different path than the one others expect you to take. I believe that courage is available to you. I believe you have what it takes to make these hard choices, to say no to what's merely good, so you can say yes to what's truly best for you. And the reward for that courage? A life of focus rather than fragmentation. A life of depth rather than shallowness. A life of meaningful achievement rather than endless busyness. Think about the legacy you want to leave. When your time here is done, what do you want people to remember about you? What impact do you want to have made? What difference do you want to have created? Whatever that legacy is, it won't come from saying yes to everything. It will come from saying yes to the right things, the things that align with your deepest values and your highest vision for your life. I once heard someone say, the space in your life is limited. If you want to let great things in, you need to get rid of just the good things. That's wisdom. That's the essence of what we're talking about today. Your life is too valuable to waste on merely good activities that don't move you toward your best future. Your time is too precious to squander on obligations that don't align with your highest purpose. Your energy is too limited to spend on projects that don't reflect your core values. So I challenge you today, start practicing the art of the strategic no. Start being more selective about what you allow into your life. Start guarding your time and energy as the precious resources they are. Let me give you a simple framework to help you evaluate opportunities. When something comes your way, a request, an invitation, a potential commitment, ask yourself these 4 questions. First, does this align with my core values? If it contradicts what you stand for, that's an easy no. But even if it's neutral, if it neither supports nor violates your values, that might not be enough to warrant a yes. Second, does this move me toward my most important goals? Remember, good is the enemy of great. Something can be worthwhile without being worth your while. Be honest about whether this opportunity will accelerate your progress or distract from it. Third, what we'll have to give up to do this? Every yes comes with a cost. Time spent on one activity is time not spent on another. Energy invested here is energy not available there. Before you say yes, be clear about what you're saying no to as a result. And fourth, if I had to do this for a year, would I be happy with that decision? This question helps you see beyond the immediate appeal of an opportunity to its long-term implications. Many commitments that seem manageable in the short term become burdensome over time. This framework isn't about saying no to everything. It's about being intentional with your yeses. It's about making decisions that align with your highest priorities rather than reacting to whatever comes your way. You know, one of the most valuable lessons I've learned is that saying no doesn't have to mean saying no forever. Sometimes it just means not now. There are seasons in life. There are things that might be right for you later but aren't right for you today. I think about my own experience with writing books. For years, people encouraged me to write, but I said no. Not because I didn't value writing or believe I had something to share, but because at that time, my priority was speaking and building my business. Later, when the time was right, I said yes to writing, and I've now authored books that have helped millions of people. Timing matters. Sequencing matters. Sometimes the right thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing. Having the wisdom to know not just what to say yes to, but when to say yes to it. That's part of the art of selective living. It won't be easy at first. You'll feel the pull of old habits. You'll worry about disappointing others. You'll fear missing out on opportunities. But stay the course. The clarity and focus you gain will be worth the temporary discomfort. And remember, you're not just saying no, you're saying yes to something better. You're saying yes to a life of purpose rather than distraction. You're saying yes to depth rather than shallowness. You're saying yes to meaningful achievement rather than endless activity. That's what success looks like. Not checking more boxes or adding more commitments or accumulating more stuff. Success is becoming who you were meant to be and doing what you were meant to do. And that only happens when you learn to say no to the good, so you can say yes to the best. I've seen the transformation that comes when people embrace this principle. I've watched them go from stressed and scattered to focused and fulfilled. I've seen them achieve things they never thought possible because they stopped diluting their efforts across too many activities. You can experience that same transformation. It starts with a decision to value quality over quantity in how you spend your life. A decision to be intentional rather than reactive. A decision to choose the best over the merely good. Make that decision today. Start small if you need to. Say no to one thing this week that doesn't align with your highest priorities. Create space for what matters most, then do it again next week and the week after that. Build the habit of selective focus. Over time, those small decisions will compound. Just as small investments grow over time through the power of compound interest, small choices about how you spend your time and energy will compound into a life of meaning and impact. The choice is yours. You can continue saying yes to whatever comes your way, spreading yourself thin across countless good but not great activities. Or you can begin the practice of strategic selection, focusing your limited resources on what truly matters to you. I encourage you to choose the latter. Learn to say no to the good so you can say yes to the best. Your future self will thank you for the clarity, focus, and achievement that will result from that choice. Remember, success is not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things. Not just the good things, but the best things, the things that align with who you are and who you want to become. Make that your standard starting today. Don't settle for good when the best is possible. Guard your time, your energy, and your attention as the precious resources they are. Be willing to disappoint in the short term for the sake of your long-term impact. That's how you build a life of no regrets. That's how you create a legacy that lasts. That's how you become the person you were meant to be and accomplish what you were meant to accomplish. So let this be the day you begin a new practice. The practice of saying a thoughtful, intentional no to what's merely good so you can say an enthusiastic, committed yes to what's truly best. I want to leave you with this final thought. Life rewards clarity. When you're clear about who you are, what you value, and where you're going, everything gets easier. Decisions become simpler. Distractions become more obvious. Progress becomes more consistent. Most people never achieve this clarity. They drift through life, buffeted by circumstances, pulled in whatever direction the winds of opportunity or obligation happen to blow. They say yes without thinking, no without considering, and then wonder why their lives feel chaotic and unfulfilling. But you can be different, you can be intentional, you can be selective, you can build a life of purpose and meaning by choosing carefully what you allow into your life and what you keep out. Remember, it's not about doing more. It's about doing more of what matters. It's not about filling every moment with activity. It's about filling the right moments with the right activities, the ones that reflect your values, advance your goals, strengthen your relationships, and bring you joy. The most successful people I know aren't the ones who do the most. They're the ones who do the most important things consistently well. They've mastered the art of elimination, cutting away the non-essential, so the essential can flourish. You can develop that same mastery. It starts with a decision to value quality over quantity in how you spend your life. A decision to choose carefully rather than accept automatically. a decision to design your life rather than inherit it. Make that decision today, and then make it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. One choice at a time, one day at a time, you'll build a life that reflects your highest values and your deepest aspirations. That's my challenge to you. That's my hope for you. Learn to say no to the good so you can say yes to the best. Your future is worth it.